9 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
And then I have to unmute, and then maybe we're working. All right. So welcome, everybody. I think that it's working, but I can't be sure because I'm not monitoring it anywhere. So I guess I'll do that first. And we'll bring this up. There we go. We got a screen over here. I think we need this on the screen. And what we'll do is bring up one of, looks like I got some wiggles over there. We'll bring up one of our channels over here to monitor, like YouTube perhaps. What do you think? There it is. We got no thumbnail on this. That's interesting. And looks like it's taking a little time to show. Oh, look at that. We got audio. All right. So we'll see if anybody joins us in the middle of the night. And wow. Is that all the people that are over here on Instagram? Wow. Welcome. Good evening. I haven't gone live on Instagram in a long time, but guess what? We're talking about Instagram tonight. So maybe this will be interesting for all you folks that are over there on the phones, I'm assuming. I'm also on Rumble, and I'm also on X. So welcome to everybody. I'm not sure how many of the comments are going to display from me over here, but since I'm not seeing anything from Instagram over here on mine, there's what I'm looking at. I'm going to look at my Instagram ones over here on Instagram. So right off the bat, for anybody that's streaming live, I think it's definitely worth hooking your Instagram live up to your streaming software. So we get a lot of people listening from X, but right off the bat, we got people commenting on Instagram. See, Armed Atlas is out there. Welcome. Rhino, Sergio, Brent. Can I highlight things? I can't highlight things. I'll get used to it, though. I'm learning. So thanks for the feedback on the audio and whatnot, but let's jump into it. So I just decided to go live. We were kind of chatting in a members-only chat that I was listening to, and we were kind of reminiscing. So I decided, hey, you know what let's do? Let's go look at my Instagram feed. So I was doing that a little bit, looking for a specific picture, and that's what got me thinking about this. So this is my Instagram feed, and what I'm going to do is just when you, on a Windows machine at least, when you smash the scroll wheel, and then that little, I don't know what to call it, circle with arrows in it appears, then the further you move your mouse away, the faster it's going to scroll. And I'll leave it on a scroll that doesn't give anybody seizures, hopefully. And we're looking at stuff from SHOT Show this year. It's going to be going backwards in time, of course. So now there was Range Day. Here was talking about SHOT Show, Christmas time. And, you know, the thing about Instagram is it sucks right now. And hopefully it'll get better. I don't know if it will. I don't have any hopes that it'll get better. I would like it to get better because it's been really cool in the past. I'm already scrolling, so I'd have to bring up another window to look at the top of my Instagram. But the goal here is to dig back down into Instagram, to go back as far as we can and talk about some of the stuff that we posted back in the day. But I guess what I'm saying is the reason I'm saying it sucks now is not because of the people on it or anything. It's because of the stupid rules they have. They never really told us their rules. And, you know, they used to be able to post pictures of guns and stuff. They might not have promoted us to anybody, but at least we could post pictures of guns. But, you know, lately, if I post a picture of a gun, they think I'm selling it, even if it's, well, so far the AI pictures they haven't bothered with, but pretty much any regular picture, it claims that a lot of times it'll claim I'm selling the gun. We're trying to. So you can see it's glitching. I don't know if that's my internet or what's going on here. But I'm scrolling and I'm scrolling. So we're really still somewhere back at last year. You can definitely see I've been using a lot of the AI. I'm really enjoying the imagery that AI can do. When it first started, the stuff was nightmarish. It was really weird. And that was only a year or two ago, really, right? And it's just improved so much that it's a lot of fun to utilize it. It's a lot quicker than creating stuff from scratch, especially if you're trying to create something like just things that would be very, very difficult to create. But also, it's just a little fun to be creative with it a little bit. But at some point, we'll get to where I quit, or before I started using the AI, and that'll be when I was doing a lot of the illustrations. So for a number of years, working on different projects for awareness and for history, I was looking for consistency. I think this all kind of rewinds, and I'll talk about it how it happened in time. So I ended up doing the illustrations because I had done a couple of projects that were decks of cards. I think really were the big ones. So I've done three decks of cards, three major decks of cards so far, and the first one was an AK-47 themed deck, and the idea there was to make them like aircraft identification cards. So they were very simple and they were black and white, and that was for a reason. It was a kind of a an artistic thing. So, but I got a lot of feedback like, hey, you should do this in color. So instead of doing the exact same deck in color, I decided to do an Old West deck next. So my second deck of cards was an Old West deck. And I used illustrations. I used pictures. I had friends that had a lot of guns, Old West guns, because I live here in Tucson, Arizona. I also had access to a few museums. And then the Rock Island auction was nice enough to let me use some of their really high quality images as well. So you can kind of see some of the decks of cards as we scroll back in time here. But when I did that deck of cards with the Old West guns, what I found out was the pictures of guns, no matter what quality of picture you use, just don't show up really well on something like a playing card. So the third deck that I did was about firearms inventors, and I wanted to have some consistency. And when you think about pictures of firearms inventors, some of them are alive today, right? Some of them were alive back in the olden days before there was even photographs. So there was really no way to get consistency with these images of the inventors themselves. So what I decided to do was create illustrations, and I couldn't afford to have illustrations made. So I just started practicing on people I knew and started doing illustrations of the firearms inventors. And I mean, honestly, it's not that difficult to open up Photoshop and create a layer and just start drawing on top of a picture. And it's pretty quick. And once you've done a bunch of them, I've done dozens of them for the decks of cards, and then I've ended up doing hundreds of them since then. It only takes about 5 minutes to do a illustration based off of a picture. So I continued to do that for a number of years, and that was sort of what predated my interest in AI. So I would spend quite a bit of time in the live chats and hosting things and maybe monitoring things live that I couldn't attend, trying to maybe coordinate different live events or whatever. So I spent time in front of the computer and I was live. So I decided to do a lot of those illustrations and things live. So for a while there, you're going to see a lot of the Instagram reflect some of those illustrations. And I've done guns and vehicles and the firearms museums and other things so that the other projects I've worked on would again have some consistency. And then, just to have something that's a little more unique than just a bunch of pictures or a bunch of line drawings. Illustrations are kind of somewhere between. At least I think so. So as you get back here, take a minute to kind of figure out what year we are. But you can see I was playing with the 3D printers. So there's some 3D printed projects here. So I don't remember what year that was, probably 2000 and 20, 21. I don't remember, when I was playing with a 3D printer a lot. And then a lot of pictures of guns showing up in the feed. So this was before Instagram kind of cracked down on just pictures of guns. But you can see a lot of activism pictures. That must have been Valentine's Day with all those heart boxes. I pretty much have like a folder of Valentine's guns, a folder of Christmas guns, a folder of, do I have St. Patrick's guns? But for most of the holidays, I've got pictures of guns available that I'll repost. So this was back when I was playing with the Blender software in order to make 3D renderings, and then we would print off different. This was the time when I was making the gun channels caricatures into some of the drawings into 3D renders and then printing them. And that must have been Halloween time of whatever year that was. All right, I'm going to start paying attention to the comments. I see Ozzy is out there on the YouTube side. Oh, crap. So that's what happens when you forget that you've got your scroll thing on Instagram. So we're somewhere down here. Let's see. So here we go. I can show the stuff then people are on YouTube. So I can show you on the screen over here. So thanks, Ozzy, for joining us. Now, I'm guessing people that comment on Rumble should be able to show up over here, as well as the people on X. But, we'll only know if those people comment. But we are getting comments over here on the Instagram. So again, welcome everybody on Instagram. Look how many people are on Instagram. So if you got any questions, feel free. I scrolled through a lot of stuff right there. So I'm going to go slower now and just sort of start grabbing random stuff here to talk about, and feel free to ask about anything you might see here. I would say my Instagram is fairly random. I don't do like some people like really monitor their site or their channel so that it's, it's very, they'll make it very, I don't know what the word is, very consistent maybe. I don't really care too much about that. I do try to make it useful and make it entertaining, but probably more educational than, just nothing. And I'm really not trying to sell too much stuff. I mean, I do have projects and we have had fundraisers, but, our goal isn't to try to figure out how to make money every day on Instagram or anything. So going back here, it looks like we had this would have been 2022. So this only went back a couple of years so far. But doing, the different, I put stuff together on guncalendars.com. Having it on the guncalendars.com is great, but how many people actually go over to that website? Not that many really. So taking that information and then spreading it out to the social platforms is like step 2. And again, thanks to our Patreons, we have a little thing going at the bottom of the screen there, thanking the people that financially support what we do over here. People on YouTube that are just YouTube channels, that's all they do. Some people like that. That's entertaining. It's supporting somebody you find interesting. What we're doing is trying to kind of do a lot of stuff. And part of that is the websites that are out there, like guncalendars.com. Part of the whatever costs, I guess, of doing business is having the servers and then having the websites up, taking some time to update the websites. But then the real work, that's sort of the meat, but kind of the preparation then to really get that served out is to use that data and put it on the different socials, because that's where people are. So having it on the websites is useful, and it's the practical way to keep the information out there. But then sharing it on the socials is part of it. Let's see. Then I got a picture here of when I had all 3 of my monitors going. So this is my laptop in the middle, then a big wide monitor to the right is my second monitor. And then this up and down monitor was pretty nice. It went out on me, but that was like a monitor that could flip vertical and horizontal. And as I was doing a lot of writing for the books and, formatting things for a vertical page, that was super helpful. And it's really big, so didn't have to squint or anything. You could see everything. It was super nice. But like I say, it's gone out on me. And that was only $40. That was a $40 monitor from the university auction. At least by me, the university constantly gets rid of stuff that's cool, and they sell it at pennies on the dollar. So if you've got a university nearby, find out if they do an auction and go check it out. This is a thing I'll try to do every once in a while to kind of share some of the channels that we appreciate, the channels that we follow. This was back when Locked and Loaded was doing their show. That was a while ago. You can definitely see I was doing the 3D printing, and I think it was Foss that sent me this the glow in the dark 3D filament. So I did a couple of different prints in that 3D filament, and glow in the dark was showing it off. This is one of my favorite things to do. I hope this will go back to where I was, but I've got my 50 BMG collection, and it's a neat collection, but it's really difficult to carry it around. These things are heavy. It's kind of impractical. It's nicer in the belt like this because, I can just carry the belt around, but it's still heavy and giant. So being able to take a picture like this helps a lot when I go to gun shows, because guess what? When you have a bunch of 50 BMGs and you're looking at stuff at a gun show, you want to make sure you're not buying doubles, right? Or I don't need a second of any of these. So it is really handy to have this available. And then every once in a while at SHOT Show, I'll use it. If I'm trying to butter somebody up, I'm like, I like 50 so much. Look at how many 50s I have. You want to give me one of your 50s so I can put it in my collection? And it's worked a couple of times. Let's see. Is there anything that's in here from... There actually isn't. I have a couple of projectiles that from SHOT Show, though. And, from being able to show somebody a picture like this, like, I really do like them. Let's see. So then we had... every once in a while I used to repost, and I need to figure out a new repost. If you've got a lot of people on Instagram over here tonight, if you know something good to repost with, let me know, because I haven't had a good repost app, I guess, in forever. And the one I was using, if I remember right, it was a little annoying. It had to be like 3 steps or something to be able to get to repost, but I was able to repost pretty well. And I really did enjoy reposting, because as much as I post, there's a million other things happening out there that are cool. When I first got my 3D printer and started printing, I figured out you could go get files. So this is right when I got my 3D printer. I figured out you could get files that were like free to use. And then I figured out you could smush those files together. And that's literally what these first prints were. I just found somebody's chicken print, and I found somebody else's AR-15 print, and I kind of mushed them together and printed that. And it was not the best way to do it. And you can tell it doesn't even look like a really good chicken or anything. But that was my first attempts at playing around. And then I took some like Green Army guys, put different guns in their hands, and then put pumpkins on their heads. And I made a bunch of dudes like that. Printed all those out. The idea was to paint them. I think I painted 1 or 2, but I just never took the time to finish them. I probably should have made them a little larger like this. It'd been easier to paint. Let's see what else we got back here. Pictures like this where you take apart a gun. This was back when I was helping out at the gun shop, and I don't know, what was this? I think this picture was actually somebody had bought a bunch of parts and wanted a gun put together, and it was all Glock parts, but I don't know if they'd missed something for whatever reason. Pretty sure this person had a bunch of different parts and they wanted us to put it together, and I was like, well, I'll put it together. But that meant I was going to take 25 minutes longer than I needed to, because I was going to do stuff like this and put it all out and take a picture of it. But this is just a piece of... Wait, is this at the shop? I think it was at the shop. This is just a piece of Tyvek or whatever that material is. I thought it made a pretty good background. And I don't know, there's a name for this when you just set out all your parts, but I just thought it looked cool. So this was back from 2014. Yeah, I'm almost positive that was at the shop. I might have been mixing 2 different occasions up, but I don't own one of those, so I don't think it was at my house. Let's see, then every once in a while I would post pictures. Back in the day, you could post pictures, like I say, on Instagram. And, I don't know, if I've been on Instagram since like 2015, the first 3 years, I took a lot of pictures at the gun shop, and I really enjoyed taking pictures of guns, and sharing them on Instagram was a lot of fun. But then, well, I just wasn't at the gun shop as much, and I was traveling and stuff. So the channel kind of turned into, let's follow along as we go on these adventures. And then I went broke, so I couldn't travel around anymore. So then it turned into um, a lot of advocacy. I think the advocacy's been in there for a long time, but a lot of the projects I've been working on around the house for the last few years, trying not to go into too much debt. This was a fun one. This was one of the last SKSs that came into the shop, and I just took a wool blanket and kind of put it up, and with that bandolier. I think the bandolier came with it. It's always sad when somebody's collection comes in, and something like this, I'm pretty sure was, just a group of cool things that went together. So this thing would have cost, back in the day, who remembers when these were like $35? And you could get a bandolier of ammo. They'd throw it in because nobody else wanted it. You couldn't shoot it in nothing. Well, let's see. I like putting up these kind of things from the gun calendars. Back again, whenever Instagram was rocking and rolling. So I would call our Instagram years 15 through 20, maybe 19, 18. So when they weren't really persecuting gun channels and everybody was having a lot of fun with it, like people were making a lot of money, and I was not really making money. So it was just fun to be on a platform that so many people were rocking on. And um, again, I can't remember what it was called. I had some kind of editing software, very much like Canva, where I could just wiggle my fingers and create graphics and add layers and stuff. So for a lot of the gun calendars events, I made these Instagram posts, and we use these all over the place now still. So like this one, like this, I don't remember when I put it together, but um, put a little bit of historical stuff in there and an interesting graphic, and had a lot of fun with these. Like to remind people, because when Instagram was hot was when we were getting concealed carry. So right now we have a situation where all 50 states have concealed carry. When I first started online in 2000-ish, 1997, 2000, when we first started online, it was definitely not the case. It was probably more like, I don't even know, 13 states something had concealed carry. And then, the concealed carry movement started to happen thanks to the Heller decision. And by the time the internet, and communities online came around and became, social platforms became established, and then gun communities became established on those platforms, you're talking like 15, 16, those years. And that's when we saw the last couple of states finally get concealed carry. And once the concealed carry was locked up with Illinois being the last state, was that in 2014? Can't remember now. But when that happened, then it went to constitutional carry. And how many states are going to have, now we're up to 29 states with constitutional carry. So to remember that, so we don't take that for granted, I've gone through and made all kinds of posts like this one that were basically just as a nod, because some of these things were not a big deal, but most of them were actually pretty big fights. And not just like a big fight, but like fights over years and years. States like Texas, where the legislator only meets once every other year, it takes forever to get something moving through Texas, which is good. I'm not complaining. It's just that, we don't always take that. We don't always appreciate the amount and the consistency of the effort that came before us. So a lot of these posts are just to, offer a bit of that. Stuff like this is, again, when I was really playing on Instagram, this was my thing. Bob ran the gun shop, and Bob is a cool dude, who's had, I don't even know how many jobs over the years, but he's lived in Canada and the United States, all over the place, and finally moved with his wife to Tucson and started up going to gun shows and buying guns and selling guns in his collection, and then eventually buying couple of guns and selling them for profit, and became a gun shop, or an FFL, I guess, out of his home. Started going to gun shows as his FFL kind of grew, and then he eventually bought a shop over here on the east side of Tucson. And well, I don't know, maybe 6 months after he started up, I went over and said, "Hey, dude, did you know that I own the website that matches up with your gun shop?" He went, "Oh, really? What's the internet?" And I was like, "Hey, let's work together." So I never really, well, I guess I technically, anyway, we had a lot of fun with the guys from the shop, and trying to get them and guns online in those days. So whenever Instagram came along, like I said, I was already a fan of taking pictures of guns and stuff. And by the time Instagram 2015 came along, we had like 10 years of experience hanging out at the shop, and Bob didn't even hardly give a crap that I'd come in and just take guns out of the case and say, "Hey, Bob, tell me about this one." And he would let me know what it is, and I would take some pictures of it and then put whatever he told me into the comment. And, it was, I think, just a kind of a random sprinkling, since it was usually whatever was new in the shop, or whatever Bob said was a cool gun, or something that was maybe not going to last very long, or maybe it was something that was there for a while. And, or something like this one, which I think is just a cool little gun, like a little polymer 6-shot 380 from Colt. And this was years and years and years and years before the whole like little pocket 9 thing happened. The little Mustangs were just little scaled down 1911s and 380, and this was their polymer version of it. Anyway, I thought that was a neat little picture, and I used to like to put the loadout along with them. I mean, that was nothing new. That was like the thing to do on Instagram in the day. But it elicit comments and show people stuff that was just different. Nobody's really saying anything. Feel free. I don't really want to just blab here. I'm kind of playing because I'm using this software, EV Max, that lets me stream to so many platforms. I'm really enjoying it. We've got a bunch of people joining us. It doesn't tell me where everyone is, but I can see over here that we've got YouTube, of course. Ozzy's over on the YouTube side, or was earlier. We've got X. We got Rumble connected for the first time in a while. And then Instagram, which was only going to give me an hour, so we're already digging into this quite a bit. But for anybody who's still over there, feel free to leave comments or ask questions or whatever. That's what the whole thing's about. Let's see. Then this is another way of playing with the socials to complement each other, or to point to each other, or whatever you call it. But this is a project that started, well, I guess I don't know anymore, 2011, I think. So my friend had this Phoenix Arms, and I think he sold it to me, or gave it to me, or let me borrow it. I don't remember. Now I own it, so I probably bought it off of him. I think I owned it. I'm pretty sure I paid him for it. Well, maybe I just took it from him. I don't know. But anyway, I had this gun. I was out shooting it for a review, and I didn't like it. And I was sitting there thinking, I don't want to make a review of a gun I don't like. Let me go figure out what happened to this gun. And the reason I didn't like it, and I don't like these guns, is that on this Phoenix, for example, or only the Phoenix really, but on the Phoenix, the thing I didn't like about it is it had a safety here on the top of the grip, which pretty much all of these guns have, so that's no big deal. But then it also has a safety here on the slide. One, I don't like safeties on slides, so I don't like that. But two, they fight each other. They make the manual of arms for this gun very difficult because, well, there's two of them, and they're not connected physically or mechanically with each other at all. So right off the bat, the manual of arms is different than not only all of its cousins over here, but also pretty much every gun that exists, because guns usually have one or the other. Very few, if any, have both. So that was confusing to me, and I wasn't sure, why anybody would do that. But the other thing that's annoying about that combination is that there's also a magazine disconnect, which means, one, the gun won't fire without a magazine, but it also means you can't pull the slide back is it with the magazine out? So it's just such a weird thing. When you take the magazine out, you can't pull the slide back. And if you can't pull the slide back, you can't disengage the safety. So it's like this, just a very confusing manual of arms that, in my opinion, makes it more difficult. And because it's so different than any other gun, it makes it a very kind of a dead end on the tree of evolution of guns. And why would someone have built something like that? So instead of making a review where I just bitched about it, I thought to myself, this was like a Thursday night, and I was sitting here editing the video and thinking, I don't want to put a video up where I just rag on this gun. I'm going to instead go figure out why this company did this. And I started, and that's the first time I ever paid any attention to these guns, the Phoenix Arms there. And I started to look into it, and it turns out Phoenix Arms is a company that was created when this company, Raven Arms, burned down, like literally burned down. And because Raven is a bird, and this was uh, was this George Jennings? It's been a while since I thought about all this, but this was the granddad. This was the guy who started making the Jennings, the Raven pistols in I can't remember, 80 something maybe? No, 1960. What am I saying? He started making these in 1960 something as a response to the stupid 1965 NFA, and 1965 Gun Control Act, which prevented these guns from being imported, small caliber, tiny guns. So he started to make a gun to fill the demand for these guns that could no longer be imported. And when he started doing that, his son started making guns, and his daughter started making guns, and some friends of the family started making guns. A nephew started making guns. And that's what showed on this table here, is all these different brands or different companies. And that's where Raven Arms turned into Jennings, and Davis was the daughter. The brother, the daughter's husband had a brother, and that's Republic Arms. The husband also made Cobra Arms. No, actually, Cobra Arms was created when Davis Arms was sued out of existence. Jennings turned into Brico when Jennings was an asshole and lost his FFL and had to change the company. So his wife took over. Brico is the name of his son, Brian, and Brico is how they named that company. That company sold the guns that Jennings distributed, but this company made them. And then Jimenez is the company that was the result of a lawsuit that happened when a babysitter shot the kid he was supposed to be watching, and California allowed the company to sue Brico out of existence. That's a whole thing. And then that started a persecution of gun companies that resulted in the protection of lawful commerce in arms that we hear about occasionally when Hillary Clinton would say the gun industry is protected from being sued. It was because of that Brico situation. And then you have this friend of the family that creates Lorson. Well, Phoenix comes along when Raven burns down and the company burns, the factory burns down, the grandfather dies, and the grandkids start a new company out of the ashes, so to speak, called Phoenix Arms. And their first gun is just a Raven with different branding. And then eventually they decided, eventually what happened is California said, you can't build guns in California that don't have safeties here and don't have this and don't have this and don't have this. So instead of moving, Jennings was in California, Brico moved to Nevada, and then Jimenez eventually moved to Nevada, and then California and back to Nevada. Lorson moved. Sundance was in California but didn't last long enough. Cobra moved to Nevada. So all these other companies moved from California and kept making their guns the same way. Phoenix Arms stayed in California and complied with the stupid-ass California laws. And that's what created this gun that I couldn't figure out why anybody would make a gun like this. Well, it's because they were saying F you to California and made a gun that complied with all their stupid-ass rules. So once I figured all this out, I was like, wow, that's one of the most interesting things I've ever seen before. And most people dismiss all these guns as Saturday Night Specials, when in reality, these are the guns that are the result of Saturday Night Specials being persecuted in 1960s and made to and prevented from importation. These are the guns that complied with the 1968 Gun Control Act by being made in the United States out of Zamic, low heat, a low melting point metal that's easy to work with, and it doesn't destroy your tools. So it makes the guns very inexpensive because they don't have to run through tooling. If you start making your guns out of titanium and high-end metals like Smith & Wesson and SIG and everybody else does, well, then you got to go through tooling all the time. But if you make your gun out of butter, which is pretty much what Zamic is like with the cutting tools, your tools last forever and the resulting firearms are very inexpensive. So these guns have a really cool history, and that was a very cool opportunity to be able to sit down on a Thursday and create this project. And I put it out on like a Tuesday or a Monday. And ever since then, I've started to collect these guns and try to offer this insight realm of firearms ownership that I don't think very many people appreciate or have ever thought about the layers and the connections and stuff between something as simple as an inexpensive, low caliber, easily concealable pistol that allows how many millions of these guns have been made, how many millions of people have been able to walk home, with their tips and not be, scared to walk home. How many people have taken the bus home and not have to worry about anything because they've got that in their pocket. So that's one of my projects from 2011 that, I guess it's still going. Every once in a while, I'll still work on that project. I would definitely like to do a book about the Saturday night specials and the resulting Ring of Fire guns. These aren't actually Saturday night specials. These are the Ring of Fire guns. Ozzy is saying he has one of those Phoenix Arms 22s. They are neat, and they were like $111 forever at retail. I don't know. I think they were like $35 or something for the stores to buy them. And they cost like $111, and they came with 2 barrels. And, they were okay for what they are, but they're definitely a weird manual of arms. Back in the day, this was one of the first guns I ever took a picture of and put online from the shop. I don't remember if it was this picture or not. It might have been this picture. And I can't even tell you how many times this thing has been viewed. I guess I'm talking about here that I made a video of that little Derringer 6 years ago, and I forgot this was in 2021, and it's been viewed 1 million times. But the pictures of that little guy, man, I wish I would have. Well, I definitely have made enough, technically made enough money on the pictures and video of this gun that I could have bought that gun. Of course, at the time I was super poor, and I didn't know that, but I wish I would have bought one of those guns. I've never seen one less than $700 since I took that video. The Nagant revolvers, these used to cost like $30. Nobody wanted them because the ammo was super expensive, so you couldn't really shoot them. And then people that did buy them would, I forget what they do to them, but they would shoot something else through them, 38 long or something, and essentially just deal with the lead scraping off. I don't know if I should talk about the comings and goings of the community, but that's going to happen when you scroll through somebody's Instagram feed. Red Dawn week is the August 10th when the movie came out originally in 1984. And depending on the year and how much time I have to play around, we'll usually dedicate some amount of time to the movie since it is the best movie ever made. Let's see. I think the first time I ever went to any of the Red Dawn filming locations was in 2012, and we drove up there. Me and Haas drove up there. I think that was the first time, and I was amazed at how much of the pieces of the movie were still there. And then subsequently have gone back, I don't even know how many times, and discover things, learn stuff, find out stuff from the locals. Just amazing. The town that it was made in is Las Vegas, New Mexico, and they've made lots of different movies there. So there's been people in that town that have been extras in, like 10 movies or something. So anyway, big fan of Red Dawn, done all kinds of projects with it. We have all kinds of patches and stuff that reference it. And watched it in San Diego last year. Drove out to San Diego, watched it on the big screen. That was epic. Really, really, really cool. Only thing we haven't done yet is have an interview with the with can't think of his name. I can't think of his name. Milius. He's still out there kicking. His daughter is out there, but she knows about Red Dawn. But it would be neat to have do some interviews with the Red Dawn people themselves. Some of the unanswered questions for me, at least, are where is the rock, partisan rock? It's not in New Mexico. I've heard rumors that it's actually in Colorado somewhere. And I definitely seen on like the DVD extras that plaque and the flagpole were there just for the movie. So I'm pretty sure the rock exists, but it's not, no one's ever talked about where it is. I've only ever heard somebody allude to it. What is up with that picture of her? She must have been hot that day. So Mello's been around now since 2018, I think. And somebody over on Gun Channels had a bunch of dogs, and Mello got beat up and couldn't take it anymore. So she fought back one day, and they decided that was time to get rid of her. So she's lived over here since that night. And somewhere in there, back there, that little puppy came along. So I don't think that was the first picture of Mello or nothing. But yeah, she had to be hot. She never sticks her tongue out like that. So that must have been some super warm evening or something, because it looks dark. Then we can get to the mini revolvers. One day I was just sitting here thinking about it, and I figured out, oh, you know what? I've talked to almost everybody involved with the mini revolvers that's alive, at least at one time, and that was kind of neat. The only person who I missed talking to was, of course, the guy who invented them, Kasul, and somewhere around my third or fourth 22 short, I started to realize they're not all the same, and they do have different writing on them. And I started to do some research. When did I do I can't remember when I first started doing this research. It had to be back when I was still getting enough money from YouTube to be able to take time to do stuff like this. So back in the olden days, I call it, back in maybe 2015 or something, I probably did this. But I figured out that I had talked to Freedom Arms at SHOT Show one year, and I had talked to North American Arms almost every year at SHOT Show. I had visited North American Arms and done a factory tour. A couple of years later, me and Haas were driving around, and we visited Bourget with the AA-12, and then he told us his input to the little mini revolvers, and he gave me one of his gold 22 Magnums out of his personal collection, one of Dottie's guns. So amazing couple, super cool people. And then just as me and Haas are leaving, they go, oh, you should probably talk to Jerry Berber, the guy that's poured every frame since they've been made. And I'm like, what? And we drove, I don't know, half an hour away. And Jerry was in the middle of forging triggers for what are they? Charter Arms revolvers. And we have this horrible conversation with him with a forge going and all the electric furnaces and shit that are necessary to melt a shit ton of metal. And he was nice enough to let us come in and talk to him about the mini revolvers. And he ended up telling us all about the Mac 10s and all the other stuff that he's forged parts for. Of course, he owns the AA-12. So just amazing opportunity. And then I was like, you know what? I've talked to just about everybody on the planet who's been involved with the mini revolvers. I should probably, do some kind of research on that. And it wasn't too hard, but it wasn't put together anywhere. It was all just out there, and I had a fun time accumulating all that. I did get eventually all that information into a small booklet, so I did make a booklet for that. I'd love to make a book at some point. Maybe when I get super old, I'll start writing more stuff. But let's see, we won't go through these one by one. The junk guns or the little gun, I don't know what to call them. I call them junk guns or the weird guns. Did a bunch of series of these. But this is what I go to gun shows for. This is what I like to look at, is the little stuff, the weird stuff, the stuff that's complies with NFA, but is adjacent to NFA. And then, of course, the Ring of Fires. I really do like the Saturday Night Specials themselves. I like anything from Browning. And then the weird stuff that they just made in the 80s and stuff that we all grew up with in the back of magazines and stuff. Speaking of which, the mom's jeans versions of a scope mount. Nice. So we did a bunch of stuff on Instagram for the Daily Gun Show, when the Daily Gun Show was rocking and rolling from 2016 through probably 2020. I think I kind of quit doing it a little bit in, was it 20? But no, now it's not posting pictures. This was a neat thing. This was a Kel-Tec folding AR-15 bayonet. That was from SHOT Show. I'm pretty sure it was 2000 and, oh crap, I was going to say 2006, but it really could be 2008. I wish I would have freaking got one. I really, 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 really wish I would have got one. I don't know what I was thinking, but I almost immediately regretted not buying one when they were available. They didn't last long, and it's just a super cool little thing. Did you know Kel-Tec made a folding bayonet for the AR-15? Let's see. That's my carry gun, and then some little doofus 9mm next to it. Close that out. These are fun. I like to do these back in the day, but again, Instagram will get mad nowadays and say that you're trying to sell stuff. But doing polls has never been fun on Instagram. We can do it over here, though. So on YouTube, at least, they let us do some polls. When is this? This is 2021. So I mentioned doing the illustrations. These are one of the reasons I want to do that, is so that they can look consistent when they're on paper, at least more consistent than the photographs would have been. And this is a kind of work in progress for, one, the training and evolution of firearms training part of the Minuteman University project, but also just the beginnings of another project where I really hope to be able to create sort of a tree of influence and a tree of like a time frame tree to show the evolution, I guess, an evolutionary tree of where we got the firearms training that we have today. Because it all starts from a couple of dudes who kicked the shit out of people for a long time in Singapore? I forget. But then those guys came back and created, the fighting styles that the OSS, the Marines, would use. And then that stuff was essentially the basics, building blocks of modern fighting. And then a couple of dudes, starting with Cooper, start to develop kind of the same regime for pistols. And anyway, whenever I get time again, I'll start working on that project again. I think training is one of those elements of firearms that gets overlooked, taken for granted, and dismissed by too many people. And it's not that it's necessary or that it's obligational or something, but there's just so much more to offer when you appreciate, understanding that there's a lot to learn. If you think of a gun like a guitar, just because you own it don't mean squat, really. Just because you can strum on it and it doesn't sound like shit doesn't mean that you're a musician. And with a firearm, there's so much to learn that, just ignoring training because for whatever reasons people ignore training, it's just not necessary. Training isn't so strict or something that you can't have a lot of fun with, and can't obviously can learn a lot. That's the whole point of it. But Anyway, I think people hinder themselves from it. I'm hoping to be able to shed some light on that. This is playing with the sewing machine. This is the old sewing machine before it fell apart completely. But one of the things that I appreciate is patches. And somewhere along the line, without telling too many flashback stories here, which I guess was the point of this show, somewhere along the line, I decided that it's easier to figure out how to get a sewing machine than to keep trying to do batches of different patches. I had more designs in my head than I could have ability to pay for them in my wallet. So I'm trying to remember the first time I probably did a crowdfunding to do the first sewing machine, and that's what we're looking at here. I bought a Brother 7200. I'm trying to remember anymore. Seven something. It's either 700 or 7200. But the professional, it's like the consumer professional. It's like the biggest. It's the biggest. It's the biggest recreational. Is that the right word? Like not professional. Like home version. It's like the largest home version of an embroidery machine you can get, and they cost close to $1,000, maybe 500 to 1,000, depending on how old it is. So I bought one that was new, but like an older model. So it was brand new, but it was still not current, and ran that for many years. I forget how many millions of stitches gone through this machine, but as you can see in its last stages there, I quit putting it back together. I would have to take it apart all the time to fix it, and I just got sick of putting it back together all the time. So I just let it run in this like cyborg version of itself. It looked cooler anyway, but I was in there pulling threads and junk and goop out of the pulleys and stuff so much that I just didn't bother to put it back together all the time. So anyway, that machine died eventually, and this would have been printing out some Red Dawn patches, and you can see the Wolverine display behind there. So many people have purchased our patches over the years. Big thanks to them. Let's see. We've got a bunch of people watching over on the Instagram. Nobody really commenting, or if you are commenting, it's somehow disappearing or something because I don't see it. We're getting close to the hour though, and here's the deal. I don't mind doing live shows. I kind of like it. I've been doing live shows since 2010. But, the Daily Gun Show started in 2016. We've been doing a daily podcast for a long time. I don't like just saying stuff. I can. I've been sitting here talking for an hour, but I'd much rather have interaction and be responding to what people are saying out there. So be part of the show, or there'll be fewer of these, I guess, because I don't really like just going off and ranting. So if we talk about ammo, that's another one of my passions. I've been getting rid of my bayonet collection so that I can develop my ammo collection. At some point, I'll jump in there and start doing a lot more with my ammo stuff. But I forget when. I probably, it's hard to say. I think working at the gun shop with Bob definitely got me interested in appreciating all the different kinds of rimfire ammo and old ammo that's out there, different types of, whatever caliber it might be, due to the different shortages, due to the different opportunities Bob would get. Maybe somebody bringing in something weird or trading in something weird. Tucson's a pretty good spot in regards to commerce because we've got a lot of old people that retire here, and somebody that's old and retires, they bring stuff with them to Arizona, and then as time goes on, they either decide to get rid of their stuff, like grandkids don't want this, so I'll take it to the gun shop, or unfortunately sometimes people pass and their people who receive that stuff don't know what it is and take it to the gun shop. So we get that kind of stuff, but a lot of people also come down here for the Air Force and end up just swapping things out, getting rid of stuff or whatever. And so a lot of neat stuff would come through the shop is what I'm getting at. And I think somewhere in there, my appreciation for ammo increased. But honestly, I have had an ammo collection since I can remember being alive. I've always liked ammo. And this is the box of a box from 2021 of my tiny ammo. So after going to quite a few gun shows and working at the range and bugging people when I see them, hey, can I I don't have one of those in my ammo collection. Can I have a round? Most people will give you a round, even if it's a crazy rare one, especially if you're putting it in a collection. But this was just it's not really a secrets box. I think it's a box that I got from a surplus store, some radioactive parts. So it's got like radioactive stickers all over it. But it's just a little tin with all this little tiny ammo. So this is a 5.7. To put it in perspective, everything in here is smaller than a 5.7. This is a 22 long rifle. That's probably a 22 long rifle right there. So that's an old Magnum. That's probably a new Magnum, and everything else in here is something weird. So, doing stuff on Instagram, I'd say like, hey, how many of these can you identify? That kind of thing. All right, we're just about to hit the top of the hour. And like I had already threatened, getting a lot of feedback, so I'll be wrapping it up here. Here's a little kind of in the works version of the Minuteman University project, trying to put that on paper and trying to figure out how to visualize the progress of firearms inventors over the years. Knowing that there's been a lot of firearms inventors is one thing, but my overall vision would be to have some sort of a timeline so we can see not only when these things were happening, but how many of these things were happening at the same time, that kind of thing. And it's not an easy task, I'll say that. It's definitely, there's a lot of data and like a billion ways to present it. Another attempt at putting a timeline together with rifles. Was that NFA stuff? And then pistols and revolvers, and then ammunition. Because remember, ammunition gets invented all along too. So, as different things, something happens on the ammo front, and then guns are developed. People's opinions of guns change because of that. New ammo is developed, and so forth. So there's a lot to put into that. And again, thanks to the Patreons. If we had enough Patreons, I could sit around doing projects like this constantly. Another big project I think is useful is the maps, and I think we mostly post this. These maps were for helping out with different Minuteman University pages, but again, to visualize where we're at. When we say how many people are living under assault weapons ban, you might go, oh, 9 states have an assault weapons ban. Do you know that that's like 2/3 of gun owners in this country? Something like that. Like when you think of the population. 2A for USA is saying that crimped shot round brings back memories. Oh, you're talking about the kind of a shot shell for a 22. So this guy here is a 22 long rifle, but so it's a rimfire, but instead of having a solid projectile up front, it's just like this little 22 LR. This one has a plastic capsule or something that shoots out little tiny buckshot. This guy has a little tiny buckshot in it, but just crimped. And then when you'd shoot it, it would just uncrimp and eject normally. This is a 22 Magnum with buckshot up front. Technically, this little guy is a 22 Cap BB. No, 22. No, that's a nothing. That's a blank. Sorry. But these here are some of the original. That's how some of the original bullets first looked, and they're like one. Well, I guess it's more like having a bullet. I was gonna say, but it's like having one little piece of shot. But yeah, those things they're. I don't know if they're effective at rabbits or not. I guess if you were close enough to a rabbit, in my experience, they're not effective for a rabbit. They're okay for birds, but they're super good for just breaking stuff, like just breaking soft things. They're a lot of fun for just, if you've got an opportunity, just walk around a field and shoot at clumps of dirt or cow poop or something. Those little shot shells are pretty good for that. Knocking things off of fences and stuff, they're good for that. Knocking cans off of things. All right, well, we're just about at an hour, but we have been getting a little bit of feedback, so thanks for that. Yep, just fun. That's for sure. and they don't make that much noise. So back in the day, walking around shooting stuff, if you're shooting the shot like that, it just it didn't make as much noise in general, but it also didn't hit nothing, right? Like there was no ricochet or nothing, so nobody was getting upset about that kind of thing. There's another picture of my Ring of Fires. So the Ring of Fires on that other image had all those different companies represented. I'm only missing like 2 guns to own a 22 caliber from every possible variation. Well, maybe not every color variation, but almost every variation that could exist amongst them. There's a couple more that are in this picture because some of them are literally just identical. They have different roll marks, different markings on them. But as far as every like material, every type of, well, every company for sure, but every type of handle or grip, I guess, every design of grip, every design of slide, pretty much have everything in the collection, except for who the hell made it? Somebody had, I can't think of who. Oh, it was Northridge. Somebody, this importer called Northridge, took a bunch of slides and had them engraved. So there's a floral engraved slide that was a one-off that I just never acquired. It was very difficult to acquire. Never got it. The little guns, I never had anywhere near a complete collection of them. I just have more than most people, but they were a lot of fun to collect too. These are harder to collect because these things cost like $250 a piece. These you can get for like $13, depending on if it works or not. Much easier to collect Ring of Fire guns. Actually, it's much cheaper to collect Ring of Fire guns, but it actually is much more difficult because they just aren't out there. This was a pretty fun collection for a while. When I had money, I collected Milsurp stuff. So this is, well, a Yugo AK, and then I don't remember what this is. 2 Enfields. Oh, I think one of my Enfields was in 303. The green one was in 303, and this one was in 308. I think Foss has this one, and dude has this one. Then these are all different kinds of Mosins. This is my Mosin with a black bayonet, I think, which makes it something. And then this is I think this is a Russian Mosin. And then this one is something, and then this one's a Chinese Mosin. So, oh no, this is the Mosin with the black bayonet. So I think this one's Chinese, this one's Finnish, this one is Russian, and I don't remember. Oh, you know what this one is? What the hell is that? What's making that noise? Oh, you know what it is? Foss is about to do his show. So back in the old days, Foss would do his show at this time. Gun Food is out there. Welcome. I can see people joining on Instagram. However, I don't think when you say stuff, it's showing up on my screen or something. I don't know. And I bet you my broadcast is about to end over on Instagram at some point. It says it'll only do it for an hour. Let's see. 2A for USA is saying I have a Yugo underfolder. It's one of my favorites. I mean, for me personally, it was a gun that it's one of my favorite guns I own, but it's also, I really like the Yugo underfolder as far as AKs go. Oh, let's see. The one in the middle looks like a 22 ACP I had back in the day. Yep. That was the Phoenix in the center there. Or no, that was the Raven, excuse me, in the center there. So anyway, I got rid of pretty much all of these guns to pay bills back in the day, but it was fun for a little while to have a bunch of Mosins around. They used to be super cheap to shoot and whatnot. Another fun thing to do back in the day with Instagram was to share some of this kind of stuff, again, from gun calendars, but just being able to think about like the little mechanical Uzis that came around in the 80s. The internet lets us actually do research and find stuff out. And there are definitely people, not everything, but people like myself, people that are just, enthusiastic about this stuff, go out and find the info and share it. And then it exists. So somebody had done that with the Uzi stuff. So this one wasn't no brain. This one was really easy to do research on because somebody had already done it all. But we're probably talking about these things in a live chat, and that got me to wondering, what is the story? Like, where did we get these things? I'm pretty sure I had that one in that box, but I mean, I could be messed up because it's been so long ago. But I know I had one of these little Uzis, and they were pretty awesome. You'd fill the mag up with water, and then you insert it like normal. The only thing you had to worry about was like this little wire or hose or whatever had to go into the hole. But otherwise, it was like loading a regular one, and the stock was made out of plastic, but it's still extended and everything. And it was about the coolest, most realistic Uzi we could get back then. And it was also a battery-powered squirt gun, so it was just cool on top of cool. The only thing lame about it is I think it made a noise that was pretty lame. And I'm pretty sure some of us went in and broke the noise thing because we didn't like the noise. But it actually squirted water really well. It was a little bit fragile. Mine eventually broke, but I also modded it by killing the noise, and that probably didn't help nothing. At least, but taking it apart and putting it back together. But man, those things were cool. Anyway, I remember doing the research on these, and anyway, for what it's worth, May 10th, 1980 is when the first one was patented, and there was about 5 companies that ended up making those things, if I remember right. I think we'll wrap it up with patches. As you might have seen, lots of patches in the Instagram feeds. Growing up as just a kid in the olden days, patches, in the military, patches in scouts, patches. Heck, I got patches for fishing. Like, patches were just a thing. And growing up, somewhere about 2012, I figured out, you know what, I can make patches too. And we started making patches pretty much on the regular by about 2014. I think I'd already got my machine by then. So we were sewing patches and making them and having runs, meeting people in the industry. And at this point, I mean, I know everybody who makes patches. I'm not going to say I'm friends with all of them, but we definitely have friends in the industry, and I know where all the patches come from. I can tell by looking at them pretty much who made the patches, and keeping track of that and watching that over the years has been just a lot of fun. So we've helped, with the patch batches in 2019, and then in 2020 we did patch batches. I might have lost tens of thousands of dollars, but who cares? It was a lot of fun. We got a lot of patches out to organizations. Hopefully they figured out how to use patches to fundraise and how to keep people together in a community. And I think I could say you've seen lots of them here. We'll do more as time goes on. We do our own digitizing and turning them into machine files and running them on the machines, and some more examples of stuff that we made over the years. All right, with that, that's Clover's patch. The Mr. Knives patch is the one we did. But with that, I think we'll start to wrap this one up. Thanks again to I can't even count how many people have joined us on Instagram. Definitely Instagram wins the... Am I missing the comments anywhere? Clicked on the comment tab. I don't think I'm missing them. But you're definitely on Instagram winning the number of people joining us tonight. I think there's 12 on YouTube right now. 2A for USA is the only one saying anything, unless I'm missing stuff. Ozzy said stuff earlier. But for those that were out there, thanks for joining. If you want to see or hear about, talk about something in one of these images in more depth, let's do it. That's what we do. We talk about stuff. This is a fun way to keep military caliber collections. This is a belt of 30-06, a belt of 308, a belt of 556, and a belt of 762 by 39. And you just keep adding links depending on how many new types of bullet you find in each of those calibers. There's ways you can use some of these links on other calibers too, because they're just kind of the same diameter type of thing. All right, I could keep going on and on and on and on and on and on, because there's, I forget, 17,000 pictures posted on Instagram or something. Give us some feedback though for everybody that's not joining us live. If you're listening to this in the future on one of these platforms, on YouTube, on X, on Rumble, or on Instagrams, then let's or give me some feedback if you want me to do one of these again. We only got back, let's see, let's open up one of these things. We only got back to 2021, so we barely went back 4 years on this flashback rewind. All right, I think if I push one more button here, it will end. We'll end it on Mello being very unhappy with her bunny ears on. Nice. Okay, thanks everybody for joining us. Gun Food, if I could, I'd bring your link up there. I'm trying to see anybody else. I don't know how to say ASSA or AASA, but thanks for joining us. I think I saw Triggerology out there. Thanks for saying hey. I guess I could just bring this thing over here and do it that way. Shooter's Mindset was out there. Welcome. So yeah, like I say, look how many people. Armed Aslos was out there for a while. Whoa. Oh shit, what can I do over here? No, I don't want to do that. Sorry. I hope I didn't report anybody. That was not my intention. I just realized that I can click on shit over here. But yeah, thanks. Be a part of the show. Comment, question, participate. That's what it's all about. I'll see you next time. Oh, I wanted to play with this first. So I think I can do this. Am I still on here? Can you still hear me? What happens if I go over here? Oh, wait, how do I do this? Yeah, go over here. And then what do I do? What are you seeing on the screen right now? Is that what you're seeing? Then I go to here, I guess. And then I can go. All right, so wildest firearms related news stories. Wildest firearms related news stories. So I put a bunch of, I think I put like 12 different conversations to have, conversation starters. So I'm going to spin again because I don't really have anything on that one off the top of my head, mainly because I don't pay attention to guns in the news too much. Unless it's kind of demand. Firearms training tips. So I'll riff on that for a bit and then we'll leave. But I wanted to see if that little spinny thing worked. It looks like it did. And the only other question I'm going to have is, oh, thanks for the feedback on that. So I'm using this new service. I quit my last whatever I was using for streaming, and so far I'm enjoying this one. Thanks to, I better get ready for Foss's show. I need to tell this phone to quit making these alarms go off. I don't know why it's thinking that that's an old alarm. But I think I wanted to make sure I added myself so I could talk in here. Anyhow, firearms training tip. If you can't remember the first name of your last instructor, then it's time to take another class. I got that advice from first aid training one time, and I really, really like that. I think I read that in a magazine article. I'm pretty sure I was I worked at a gas station a long, long time ago when I was in school, and I'm pretty sure I was reading a backpacker magazine about first aid, and somebody who's just fancied themselves someone who understands first aid for my whole life. When I read that, I thought, you know what? I couldn't remember the first name of the person who taught my last first aid class, and that got me to, I don't remember, enroll in like probably CPR at the time. This was like in the 90s. I probably went and enrolled in a CPR renewal or maybe a Red Cross basic first aid. Those kind of things are worth taking occasionally because things change. Like they figure out tourniquets ain't so bad, or we're going to do CPR without touching each other's mouths to strangers, right? Like, I guess they figure out that not enough strangers are living with everybody mouthing each other. So they kind of remove the breathing part from CPR, right? So things change. So it's worth taking these classes occasionally. But I think I can apply that to firearms training. Might be a little tough. Maybe I could say something like, if you have a good memory, you do remember the name of your last firearms instructor, maybe a better way to say it is if you can't remember the names of so many of the student in your class, or if you can't remember the type of firearm you brought to that class or something, some trigger that lets you know, okay, maybe it is time to take some more training. I can tell you, as someone who's sat in for a number of years, training as often as I could, I was enjoying it, and it was really, um, I wouldn't say effortless, but it was definitely made easier by some people here in Arizona that hopefully we'll be talking to much more often in the near future. But and I just, I was lucky enough to exist at a time when that opportunity was available. So I've, happened to have experienced quite a bit of training, and I can tell you that it's having a lot of it is better than having none of it, for sure, and having some of it is super useful. So, or can be super useful. I'm not going to say every kind of firearms training is magic, but more than one training. If you go to one CCW class, you haven't done anything. You've gone to one CCW class. If you go to two CCW classes, you've gone to enough CCW classes that you can start to compare them to each other. By the time you go to your third, now you've experienced three different instructors, three different classrooms of pupils, peers that ask different questions. You definitely have a better rounded picture of what it's like to go to a CCW experience. You do that for a year consistently, go to 12 to 15 classes in a year, and you're probably going to either want to become a CCW instructor or do what I'm trying to do, like get people to realize how interesting it can be to think of this as another aspect of firearms that isn't a burden, and it isn't like some kind of obligation. I definitely don't think it's a necessity, but it's an opportunity that we've all got. And I'll hopefully be able to explain someday, that we happen to live in a pretty good time in the world. There was a time when firearms training was definitely less effective and less interesting than it is today. And the cost and the availability of it is negligible compared to what it has had been in the past. And it's only getting more interesting. So anyway, that's my firearms training tip. If you can't remember the first name of your last instructor, then consider taking some more classes, taking some more training. But anyway, thanks for letting me kind of experiment. This is an app in this new software, or this new, I guess it's software. Takes me like 3, maybe more clicks to get to where I can spin it, but it lets me spin. I think I can change the thing while we're that's kind of interesting. But anyway, so with that, we'll spin it one more time just to play with it, and then I'll end the show. I am curious to know if it's going to automatically play the end or not. Like, this will either end abruptly. You're hearing all the sound effects too, right? I'm assuming they're not just playing those for me. But I'm going to click end broadcast, and then I'm going to experiment and see if it's going to play this last scene, or if I should have clicked the last scene first. So either way, you're either going to get the end of the show abruptly, or we'll see you next time.